Hello all, just going to do a theoretically quick review of Series 3, Episode 8 of The Orville. This episode's called Midnight Blue. It's a relatively simple episode, but nonetheless very enjoyable. And it's quite a long one compared to the others, it's about an hour and a half. It starts with Kelly and Bortus in the mess room. Bortus mentions to Kelly that Topa has an interest in a boy. So Kelly goes to see Topa, introduces it subtly into conversation and tells her if she likes somebody and she thinks they like her back, say something. Turns out the person she likes is Malloy. And there's an awkward but funny scene where she's asking him to go out with her and Malloy's saying, yeah, no problem, until the penny drops and he realises quite how it's being asked. Meanwhile, everybody around knows exactly what's happening. And he says, you're like a sister to me. Anything you need, I'll be there. So initially this seems like quite a funny little side scene. And to be honest with you, I've not really got a sense there's any connection between them through the rest of the series. But it plays into the rest of this episode. So it's been a year since Heveena's colony was given protection and the agreement that she wouldn't transport any more females from Moclan. And it's time for an inspection. Bortus and Kelly are going to go down, meet the Moclans in the atmosphere inside the nebula, and then go and do their inspections together. Topa asks if she can go because she's obsessed with Heveena. She idolises her because Heveena spoke at, I guess you'd call it the trial, where they decided to make Topa a boy. Bortus doesn't want to take her down there, but Kelly persuades him that it'd be a good idea. They leave the Orville outside of the nebula, go down to the planet in a shuttle. The Moclans are already there and said they've carried out their inspection. There's a bit of a hostile encounter between them. Kelly and Bortus and Topa make their way into the village. Topa's wide-eyed and excited because this is amazing to her, all these Moclan women. They get taken to Heveena, and Heveena is bewitching to Topa. Kelly and Bortus leave to do their inspection, leaving Topa with Heveena. At which point Heveena starts talking about the rebellion. And here starts the manipulation of a child. Evening comes. Kelly and Bortus and Topa stay for a meal. There's these little firefly things called luminites, and Topa wants to go and see them. She stands amongst them, at which point Heveena comes out and again manipulates her idealism and manipulates her hero worship. It's quite a dark thing to be doing for the right reasons maybe, but it's a very dark thing to be doing. Manipulating a child because Heveena wants her to carry messages because she started smuggling children off Moclus again, which breaks the agreement. And she gives Topa the information of the frequency they use and the contact on Moclus. And she also talks about this rare blue luminite, which is a sign of good luck. Heveena leaves her, Topa sees a blue luminite, follows it into the jungle, at which point she's grabbed by the other Moclans and taken off the planet and taken to a secret black site. Bortus and Kelly realise she's not around, start searching. They realise she must have been taken by the Moclans and they ask Heveena if she knows why, and Heveena completely denies any information or knowledge. They go to their shuttle, find out that it's actually been sabotaged by the Moclans, so communications are down and their launch thrusters are offline. So Kelly just launches using the main engines. They fly up into the nebula, discover the ion trail of the Moclans and decide to follow it because it was dissipating so fast they'd never get to the Orville in time to be able to follow it. Obviously back on the Orville, they're getting concerned because Kelly, Bortus and Topa have been away so long. So Mercer decides to take the Orville into the nebula, breaking the agreement, and he brings Heveena on board. He asks Heveena if she knows why this happened, and she denies it. And this is a really nice scene because Mercer knows something's going on and calls her out on her bullshit. And she admits what she's done and pretends it's some high moral crusade. And he just calls it out as it really is, which is cynical opportunism. And I just quite like that. I quite like the fact that he respects her reasons, but condemns her for her actions. And that's kind of a reflection of the story because she's in a battle to save not really the lives of children, but their identities, if you like. The girl children, as we've established previously, will always be converted into boys unless they escape. And I've gone through this before, the bigotry of the Moclan people, which is clearly portrayed as bigotry, but could also be seen as them doing what they think is a kindness to these children, because as girls, they'll never fit into a whole male society. So there's a meeting with Admiral Halsey, who says there's not enough to investigate the Moclans unless Heveena testifies what she did, and Heveena refuses. Quite aggressively refuses, actually. And again, it's understandable because if she testifies that she broke the agreement, that puts every female Moklan on the planet at risk and all of the girls yet to be born on Moklas. Now, to proceed the next bit, Heveena is weirdly obsessed with Dolly Parton. She sees her music as the voice of the rebellion. So Mercer, doing a little manipulation of his own, creates a simulation of Dolly Parton's cabin and Dolly Parton. Heveena realises it's what Mercer's doing, but she's still entranced by this simulation of Dolly Parton, played by the real Dolly Parton. Convinces Heveena by simply telling her a story and saying, you do what you have to do today and the future will take care of itself. Then we get a Dolly Parton song, during which Heveena goes to Mercer, says she'll testify, and the Orville sets course back to the Union. I'm not doing this stuff in order, by the way. I'm kind of chopping and changing so it makes some sense. There's a council meeting and Heveena is testifying that she had broken the agreement. And the council president says that that's evidence enough to start an investigation of the Moklans. And the Moklans obviously object to this because the council are insulting them when this person has just admitted she's a criminal, has broken the agreement. Meanwhile, Bortus and Kelly have followed the Moklan ship to the planet. They discover the black site, cloak their ship, land, and make their way across to the base. Now, this is where this weird bit I was referring to earlier is. It's a very jarring moment where Bortus and Kelly kind of become emotionally intimate, and there's a second where they're about to kiss. And I say it's very jarring. It doesn't feel like there's been any build-up for this. I know they have a relationship on the basis that Bortus kind of relies on Kelly to help her with Topa, but it just feels out of the blue. And this series has far more been inferring that Mercer and Kelly may be reconnecting. So it just seemed very much out of the blue, very much out of place. Anyway, they get to the base. They stealth their way in until they have to fight their way in. Meanwhile, Topa is being tortured, initially by being hit, and then with a krill pain device that has various settings, increased discomfort, and can lead to permanent neurological damage. And Topa resists, even though she's a mess, a bloody mess, and screaming when this device is used on her, until eventually she can take no more and she says she'll speak. The base commander comes in, the torturer tells him he has the information, and the commander says, kill the girl and dump her in the canyon. Bortus and Kelly burst in. Kelly shoots the commander. The torturer backs off. Bortus breaks his daughter free, glaring and growling at the torturer. Kelly saying, let's go. Bortus starts taking his daughter to the door, and then he just turns around and he goes for the man. And he wails on him. And the torturer manages to use the torture device on Bortus. It stops him for literally a second until Bortus takes it off him and shoves it in his eye. It's a very Klingon moment. It's brutal, but it's very satisfying because it really expresses that pure rage Bortus has at seeing his daughter. Back at Union headquarters, there's a small meeting between the Moklan attaches and the Union leaders. And for some reason, Gordon's in this meeting as well. He'd asked to be part of the earlier meeting and he was in the audience, I guess you'd say. And this time he's actually in the room. And the Moklans, as usual, are arrogant, superior, make the point that the Union needs them, and basically infer if the Union continue to pursue this avenue, they will lose their strongest ally against the Kaylon. At which point, Malloy scoffs. One of the Moklans turns to him and says, have you got something to say? Mercer nervously shakes his head, but Malloy gets up and he calls out their bullshit. Again, a very nice scene. Even though he's being told to stop, he tells them, good and proper, that they are shits. That they commit all sorts of offences, and when they're called out on it, they play the victim, and they're the ones who expect the apology. And again, a nice confrontational scene. Unfortunately, the result is that the Moklans say, we've had enough of this, and the scene then moves to another big council meeting, where the Moklan ambassador is addressing the other ambassadors, saying Heveena needs to be held to account. She's the criminal in this situation. He has every right to be offended and expect an apology for that this agreement was ever put in place. And anyone who disagrees should stand now. And Bortus and Kelly and Topa walk in. Topa is a bloody mess. And Kelly explains that Topa refused medical treatment so the council would see what the Moklans did to her. The Moklans deny it. And there's just, honestly, Peter McCon, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, as Lieutenant Commander Bortus, is absolutely killing it in this episode. The range of emotions he's showing and the power of his performance, the rage, the frustration, the anguish, that his own people have done this to his child. It's a tour de force. It's a fantastic scene. And once he's finished, the council delegates start standing up, indicating that they object to the Moclan's position. And it's expected, but it still works. Sometimes subverting expectations is not what you want. Sometimes your expectations need to be met for something to work. To flick to next scene, not sure where this is taking place, might be the Admiral's office, might not. Heveena walks up to Bortus and tries to apologise to him, and he pretty much doesn't accept her apology. Again, that was a nice little moment. Nice that he didn't just say, "Oh, I forgive you." No. Admiral Halsey walks in, says, "Well, that's it. We've kicked the Moclans out. Causes lots of problems, and it makes us weaker against the Kalons. But we'll figure it out." And Halsey tells Heveena that the colony will be recognised as a sovereign nation and be protected by the Union. So as it turns out, doing the right thing now, the future looked after itself. So Heveena wins as well. Switch to the Orville, and the Doctor is treating Topa. Tyler walks in and brings in Clyden, and Clyden asks to see Topa. And again, this is a lovely scene where Clyden has basically been woken up that the bigotry of his own people and the bigotry he has himself nearly cost him his daughter. And he knows he needs to be better. He wants to be better. He apologises, and she's overjoyed to see him. The final scene is Topa, Clyden and Bortus having a meal. Kelly walks in, wants to check how Topa is and how Bortus and Clyden are. Bortus says they've renounced their citizenship and now their home is on the ship. Kelly says welcome back to Clyden because obviously they've had conflict previously. Kelly starts to leave. Clyden calls her back. She turns with an expression of, "Oh, here we go again." And Clyden invites her to join them. And Kelly joins them for a meal. And again, there's a little look between her and Bortus. I don't get that whole thing. But yeah, a much simpler episode. It still has a lot of depth to it with regards to the story around the Moclans, which I've gone into before, so I won't go into again. But also the compromises people make, even when they're doing the right thing. They sometimes do the wrong thing. It has all the moral questions, and there's no doubt that the Moclans are wrong, and they don't pretend that there is a reasonable position with them, which they have previously. But they also show that Heveena isn't morally pure, that she will go to any lengths in pursuit of her rebellion. So that was quite interesting. The negatives, one is a silly one, which was that Topa's teeth are remarkably white and remarkably straight, and it was really distracting at times when she was talking. That's a silly thing, I know. But within that also, the actress who played her, she's not the best. I understand Moclans tend to talk in quite a stilted way. Obviously, Peter McCon did a tour de force of how to project that emotion through the makeup, through the stilted delivery of a Moclan. And it might just be that she's a bit young. She sold the moments she had to sell, but the moments that weren't high emotion felt a bit flat with her. It's a little self-indulgent at times with some of the views. There's a shuttle battle as Kelly and Bortus try and escape the planet. It goes on a tiny bit too long. There's lots of bits where the shots they take are slightly longer than they really need to be. As beautiful as they are, and as amazing as the visuals are, you just need to cut that a little bit. It doesn't spoil the episode, and it doesn't feel like the episode's too long. It skips along at a fair pace. It's just there are times you notice they're hanging on a shot when maybe they should be moving on to the next thing. Other than that, it's a fantastic episode. Incredibly moving. The powerful speech by Bortus really sends chills down your spine. Really loving this series, and I didn't really have to stop myself, and I didn't really have to go on with that one. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you've got any comments, I'd be interested to hear them. And my comic book is still available from my website. It's a 228-page supernatural noir graphic novel, and the link is in the description below. Thank you again. Peace out.